The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed like dying insects above my head, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow that made even the freshest coffee look stale. My feet ached in shoes held together more by hope than actual material, and the smell of grease had long since embedded itself into my hair, my skin, my very existence. I was invisible here, just another tired woman in a stained apron, serving eggs and refilling cups for people who never really saw me. I wiped down the counter for the 100th time that night, the rag leaving wet streaks across the cracked formica. Outside, the November rain hammered against the windows, turning the parking lot into a mirror of neon and darkness. It was almost midnight, almost freedom. "Emma, table 6 needs more coffee," Sharon called from the kitchen, her voice sharp with the kind of exhaustion that comes from working double shifts for years on end. I grabbed the pot, its heat barely registering through my calloused palm, and made my way to the booth where an elderly couple sat in comfortable silence. They smiled at me, actually smiled, and something in my chest tightened. When was the last time someone had looked at me like I mattered? The bell above the door chimed. I didn't look up immediately. I'd learned not to make eye contact too quickly, not to seem too eager or too available. But there was something different about the energy that entered with the late-night customer. The air itself seemed to shift, growing heavier, charged with something I couldn't name. When I finally glanced toward the door, my hand stilled on the coffee pot. 3 men had entered, but only one commanded the space. He stood in the center, raindrops sliding down the shoulders of a black coat that probably cost more than I made in a year. Even from across the diner, I could see the sharp lines of his face, the way shadows seemed to cling to him like old friends. His shoes gleamed despite the rain, and there was something in the way he held himself, an absolute certainty that the world would bend to his will. The 2 men flanking him were built like walls, their eyes constantly scanning the room, hands resting near their waists in a way that made my instincts scream danger. But it was the man in the middle who held my attention. There was something familiar about the angle of his jaw, the way he moved with predatory grace. They took a booth in the corner, the one with a view of both the entrance and the back exit, the kind of seat someone takes when they always need to see what's coming. "Your turn," Sharon whispered suddenly beside me. "I'm on break." My heart hammered against my ribs as I approached their table, menu clutched like a shield. Up close, he was even more striking and more dangerous. His eyes were dark, almost black in the dim light, and when they lifted to meet mine, I felt the impact like a physical blow. For a moment, those eyes widened almost imperceptibly. His hand, reaching for the menu, froze in midair. "Coffee?" My voice came out steadier than I felt, years of service industry muscle memory taking over. He didn't respond immediately, just stared at me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. One of his men cleared his throat, a warning sound, but the man in the middle raised a hand slightly, a gesture so small it was almost invisible, but his companions fell silent immediately. "Emma." My name fell from his lips like a secret, like a prayer, like a curse. The menu slipped from my fingers, clattering against the table. How do you... You don't remember me." It wasn't a question. Something dark flickered across his face, there and gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "Of course you don't." But I did. Suddenly, terrifyingly, I did. Those eyes, that voice, stripped of 15 years and the hard edges that life had carved into him, a boy with paint-stained hands and dreams bigger than our shabby neighborhood could contain, a boy who had kissed me behind the school, who had promised me the world, who had disappeared one summer and never come back. Dante? The name emerged as barely a whisper. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile on anyone else, but on him looked like a weapon. "So you do remember." My legs felt weak. I gripped the edge of the table, aware that his men were watching me with new interest, their hands shifting beneath their jackets. You left? You just vanished." I'd thought so many things, that he was dead, that he'd never cared, that I'd invented the whole thing in my foolish teenage heart. "Sit down, Emma." It was a command, soft-spoken, but absolute. Everything in me wanted to run, to refuse, to maintain some dignity, but my body obeyed before my mind could catch up. sliding into the booth opposite him. The vinyl was cracked beneath me, digging into my thighs through my thin uniform. Up close, I could see the subtle differences. The scar that cut through his left eyebrow, the silver ring on his finger that caught the light, the way his jaw was harder, his eyes colder. This wasn't the boy I'd known. This was someone else wearing his face. "You work here," he said, and it wasn't a question. His gaze traveled over my stained apron, my exhausted face, and something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "How long?" 3 years. I didn't know why I was answering. "Look, Where do you live?" The question was casual, but his tone made it clear he expected an answer. One of his men had pulled out a phone, fingers poised to type. "That's none of your business." I found my spine, my voice. "You disappeared 15 years ago, Dante. You don't get to walk back in and—" "I didn't disappear." His hand moved across the table, not touching me but close enough that I could feel the heat of his skin. "I was taken. My father—" He stopped abruptly, jaw clenching. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I looked for you. For years, Emma. Do you understand? Years." My heart was a wild thing in my chest. I moved. "After my mom died, I had to—" "I know." His voice was soft now, deadly soft. "I know about your mother. About the bills. About everything you've been through." His eyes held mine, and I saw something that terrified me more than his power, more than his obvious danger. I saw obsession. "And now I've found you." The temperature in the diner seemed to drop. "Dante, I don't know what you think is going to happen here, but you're coming with me." He stood, his coat falling around him like a shadow. "Marco, bring the car around." "What?" "No!" I scrambled out of the booth, nearly tripping over my own feet. "I'm working. You can't just—" He turned back to me, and the look on his face stopped my words in my throat. It was possessive, protective, and utterly immovable. "You're done working here. You're done with all of this." His hand swept out to encompass the diner. My life. Everything I'd built from nothing. "I'm not losing you again. You don't own me." The words burst out louder than I'd intended, and I saw Sharon peek out from the kitchen, concern written across her face. "Not yet." He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell him, expensive cologne mixed with rain and something darker, dangerous. "But I will keep you safe. I will give you everything you've been denied. And you—" His fingers brushed my cheek, so gentle it made my eyes sting with unexpected tears. "You will let me." "I don't even know you anymore," I whispered. "Then you'll learn." His thumb traced my jawline, a touch that felt like a brand. "I have all the time in the world, Emma. And now, so do you." The bell above the door chimed again. More men entered, at least 4 of them, all wearing the same dark suits, the same watchful expressions. The elderly couple I'd served earlier gathered their things hastily, leaving cash on the table and hurrying out. The diner was emptying, everyone sensing that something was happening. Something beyond their understanding. "Please." I tried one more time, hating the tremor in my voice. "You can't do this. I can do anything." It wasn't a boast. It was simple fact, delivered with the confidence of someone who had never been told no and survived. "The question is whether you come willingly or whether I carry you out. Either way, Emma, you're leaving with me tonight." My mouth went dry. "Why? Why me? After all these years, why does it matter?" His expression shifted, something raw and almost vulnerable breaking through that controlled exterior. "Because you were the only real thing I ever had. The only person who saw me before I became this." His hand gestured at himself, at the men surrounding us, at the empire I was only beginning to understand. He commanded, "I lost you once. I won't make that mistake again." Before I could respond, before I could process the weight of his words, Sharon's voice cut through the tension. "Emma, should I call the police?" The change in Dante was instantaneous. His head snapped toward her, and the temperature seemed to plummet. One of his men moved, but Dante raised a hand, stopping him. "No need for that," Dante said smoothly, his voice carrying across the diner. "Emma and I are old friends, just catching up." He pulled out his wallet, leather, thick with bills, and tossed several $100 bills onto the nearest table, for her shift, and for the inconvenience. Sharon's eyes widened at the money, enough to cover a week's worth of tips. Her gaze darted between us, calculating, uncertain. "It's okay," I heard myself say, though nothing about this was okay. We went to school together. It wasn't a lie exactly, just not the whole truth. Not the part where the boy I'd known had clearly become something monstrous, something powerful enough to walk into a public place and take whatever he wanted. "You're sure?" Sharon's hand was on her phone, her maternal instinct clearly at war with the pile of money on the table. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Dante's hand found the small of my back, proprietary and warm through my thin uniform. "Get your things," he murmured, his breath hot against my ear. "Don't make me wait." My feet carried me to the back room on autopilot. I grabbed my jacket, threadbare and patched, and my purse with its pathetic contents. My hands were shaking as I untied my apron, folding it mechanically and setting it on the hook where it had hung for 3 years. This was insane. I should run, should scream, should do anything other than what I was doing. But when I emerged and saw him waiting by the door, rain-soaked and powerful, and looking at me like I was something precious he'd thought lost forever, my resistance crumbled a little more. "Ready?" he asked, as if I had a choice. I wasn't. I would never be ready for what came next. But I nodded anyway. The rain hit us the moment we stepped outside, cold and sharp. A black car, sleek, expensive, with tinted windows, waited at the curb, engine purring. One of his men held the door open, and Dante's hand on my back guided me inexorably forward. I was about to slide into the car when it happened. A loud pop, sharp as a gunshot, echoed across the parking lot. The car lurched violently to one side, and suddenly chaos erupted. Dante's men moved as one, surrounding us, hands diving into jackets. Someone shouted something in Italian. The world became a blur of motion and barely contained violence. "Tire blew," one of them reported, but his hand stayed on his weapon. Dante's arm had wrapped around me automatically, pulling me against his chest, his body a shield. I could feel his heart hammering, could feel the coiled tension in every muscle. "Coincidence?" another man asked, his voice tight. "I don't believe in coincidences." Dante's voice was ice against my ear. Then, to me, "Get in. Now." But before I could move, I saw it. Another car in the parking lot, windows dark, engine running, watching. And suddenly, I realized this had been a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. The second car's headlights flicked on, blinding bright in the rain-soaked darkness. Dante's grip on me tightened until it was almost painful, his other hand moving beneath his coat in a gesture that made my blood run cold. "Get her in the backup vehicle, now." His voice was sharp, commanding, nothing like the soft intensity from moments before. Hands, I didn't know whose, grabbed my arms and propelled me toward a black SUV that had seemingly materialized from nowhere. The door was already open, and I was pushed inside with efficient force. Dante slid in beside me, his body pressed against mine in the confined space, and the door slammed shut with a finality that made my ears ring. "Drive. Take the south route. Radio ahead to clear the checkpoints." He was all business now, the soft-spoken man from the diner replaced by something harder, colder. A phone appeared in his hand, one of 3 I could see clipped to his belt, and he was speaking rapid Italian, his free hand still anchoring me against him. The SUV lurched forward, tires squealing against wet asphalt. I twisted to look out the rear window and saw the other car, the watching one, pull out to follow us. "Who is that?" The question burst out before I could stop it. "No one you need to worry about." Dante's jaw was set, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, but his hand moved to cup the back of my head, pressing my face against his shoulder. "Don't look. Just stay down." The vehicle took a corner so sharply I would have been thrown across the seat if not for his hold on me. My heart was trying to punch its way out of my chest, and the reality of what was happening, really happening, crashed over me like the rain hammering the roof above us. This wasn't a romantic reunion. This was kidnapping. This was danger. This was a world I didn't understand, populated by men with guns and cars that followed in the night. "Let me go," I gasped, against the expensive fabric of his coat. "Please, Dante, just let me go. This is crazy. I can't." "Shh," His hand stroked my hair, a gesture so at odds with the violence humming through the vehicle that it made me dizzy. "You're safe. I promise you're safe." "Safe? We're being chased. They won't touch you." His voice dropped to something dark and absolute. I'd burn this entire city down first. The certainty in his words should have terrified me. Instead, some traitorous part of me responded to it, to the promise of protection I'd never had, to the idea of mattering enough that someone would fight for me. We drove for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, the city lights giving way to darker streets, then to a private road lined with trees. Eventually, massive iron gates loomed ahead, swinging open as we approached. Guards with earpieces and visible weapons nodded as we passed, and I realized with growing horror that this wasn't just wealth. This was a fortress. The house, no, mansion, sprawled before us, all stone and glass and impossible architecture. Lights blazed from windows, and more men in dark suits moved through the grounds like shadows with purpose. The SUV stopped beneath a portico, and Dante's door opened immediately. He climbed out, then reached back for me, his hand extended like this was a date. Like we hadn't just fled through the rain from unknown pursuers. "I can't be here," I said. But my voice was weak even to my own ears. "I have work tomorrow. You don't work there anymore." He pulled me from the vehicle with gentle insistence. "You'll never have to work like that again. That's not your decision to make." His eyes met mine, rain streaming down his face, and I saw something flicker there. Acknowledgement, perhaps, or regret. But it didn't change anything. It is now. "Come inside, Emma. You're soaked through." I was. My uniform clung to me, my hair plastered to my skull, and I was shivering from cold and shock and the surreal nightmare my life had become in the span of an hour. A woman appeared at the entrance, older, elegant, with kind eyes that immediately assessed me with professional efficiency. "Mr. Caruso, the room is ready. I've laid out dry clothes. Thank you, Maria." Dante's hand found my lower back again, that possessive touch that seemed to be his default. "This is Emma. She'll be staying with us. Make sure she has everything she needs." "Of course." Maria smiled at me, and there was genuine warmth there. "Come with me, dear. Let's get you out of those wet things." I should have resisted, should have demanded to be taken home, to be released, to be treated like a person with rights and choices. But I was so cold, so tired, so overwhelmed that I simply followed Maria's gentle guidance up a sweeping staircase and down a hallway lined with art that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. The room she led me to was larger than my entire studio. A 4-poster bed dominated one wall, draped in silk that caught the light from a chandelier overhead. French doors opened onto a balcony, and through them I could see the grounds stretching into darkness, dotted with security lights and the silhouettes of patrolling guards. "The bathroom is through there," Maria indicated a door to the left. "I've drawn you a bath. The clothes on the bed should fit. Mr. Caruso was very specific about the sizes." That stopped me cold. How did he know my size? Maria's smile was knowing. "Mr. Caruso is very thorough when something matters to him. The bath will get cold if you wait too long." She left before I could formulate a response, the door clicking shut with a soft sound that might as well have been a cell door slamming. I stood in the center of that opulent room, dripping onto carpet that probably cost more per square foot than I made in a month, and tried to process what was happening. Dante, my Dante, the boy with paint-stained hands, was clearly someone important, someone dangerous, someone who commanded men with guns, and lived in a fortress, and thought nothing of taking what he wanted. And he wanted me. The thought should have been terrifying. It was terrifying. But beneath the fear, something else stirred, something I didn't want to examine too closely. The memory of being 17 and desperately in love with a boy who saw me, really saw me, when the rest of the world looked through me like I was glass. The bath was exactly as promised, steaming and fragrant with oils that turned the water milky. I peeled off my damp uniform with hands that shook, catching sight of myself in the mirror. I looked like exactly what I was, a tired waitress with dark circles under her eyes and calluses on her hands, Completely out of place in this world of marble and gold fixtures, the hot water was a revelation. I sank into it until only my face remained above the surface. And for a moment, I let myself just feel the heat seeping into my bones, unknotting muscles that had been tense for so long, I'd forgotten what relaxation felt like. A knock at the bedroom door startled me back to reality. "Emma." Dante's voice, muffled by wood and distance. "May I come in?" "I'm in the bath," I called back, then realized how absurd that was given the circumstances. "I'll wait." I could picture him out there, probably dripping his own trail of rainwater, waiting with that infinite patience that seemed to be at odds with the violence I'd witnessed. Part of me wanted to stay in the bath forever, to avoid whatever conversation was coming. But the water was already cooling, and hiding in a bathroom wasn't going to change my situation. The clothes laid out on the bed were beautiful. Soft cashmere pants in deep gray, a cream silk blouse, undergarments that still had tags from stores I'd only ever window shopped. Everything fit perfectly, which was somehow more unsettling than if they'd been wrong. I found him in the hallway, changed into dry clothes, black pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms marked with scars and what looked like the edge of a tattoo. He'd been leaning against the wall, but straightened when I emerged, his eyes tracking over me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "Better?" he asked. "I want to go home. This is your home now. You can't just decide that." Frustration boiled over, giving me courage. "You can't just take me, Dante. This is illegal. This is necessary." He moved closer, and I had to fight the urge to back away. "Emma, you don't understand what you were, where you were. That diner, that neighborhood. Do you know what operates in that area? Who watches those streets? I've lived there for 3 years. I've been fine." His laugh was bitter. "Fine. You work yourself to exhaustion for pennies. You live in a building with broken locks and mold in the walls. You walk home alone at midnight through streets controlled by people who would—" He cut himself off, jaw clenching. "You call that fine? It's my life. It was your survival. There's a difference." His hand reached out, fingers ghosting along my jaw. "I can give you more. I can give you everything. I don't want everything. I want freedom." Something dark crossed his face. "Freedom is an illusion, Bella. At least with me, you'll be protected. Cherished." His thumb brushed my lower lip, and I hated the way my breath caught. "Loved. You don't love me. You don't even know me anymore. I know enough." His hand dropped, but he didn't step back. "I know you take your coffee black because cream costs extra. I know you read on your breaks, romance novels, the cheap ones from the grocery store. I know you send money to your aunt in Vermont every month even though you can barely afford it. I know you're kind to the homeless man who sits outside your building, that you give him your leftovers from the diner." His eyes held mine, fierce and unwavering. "I know you, Emma. I've known you for 15 years, even when we were apart." My throat closed up. "You've been watching me, protecting you. There's a difference." That's stalking, Dante. That's love." He said it simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "I told you I looked for you when I finally found you 6 months ago. Did you think I would just walk away, leave you in danger, in poverty, struggling alone?" 6 months. He'd known where I was for 6 months, and only revealed himself tonight. The implications made me dizzy. "Why now?" I whispered. "Why tonight?" His expression shuddered, became unreadable. "Because I couldn't wait anymore, because every day I saw you serving people who didn't appreciate you, working yourself to death for nothing, was a day I failed you." He reached past me, opening the door to the room I'd emerged from. "It's late. You should rest. We'll talk more tomorrow." "I won't stay here." He smiled, and it was sad and knowing and absolutely certain. "You will. Because the alternative is going back to that life, and I think—" His hand cupped my face, tender despite everything. "I think a part of you has been waiting for this. For someone to choose you, to fight for you, to refuse to let you disappear." The worst part was that he was right. Some desperate, lonely part of me had been waiting for exactly this. For someone to see me as worth keeping, tomorrow, he said again. his thumb stroking my cheekbone one last time before he released me. "Sleep well, Emma." He walked away, down that endless hallway, and I watched him go with tears burning behind my eyes. When I finally retreated into the room, I found Maria had left a tray. Tea, small sandwiches, fruit, comfort food, thoughtfully arranged. I ate mechanically, then climbed into the bed that was too soft, too large, too everything. The sheets smelled like lavender and expensive detergent, nothing like my own threadbare blankets that carried the scent of the diner no matter how many times I washed them. Sleep should have been impossible, but exhaustion won out over fear, and I drifted off with the taste of strawberries on my tongue and the memory of Dante's touch on my skin. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I didn't remember opening, and the sound of birds I'd never heard in the city. For a disoriented moment, I didn't know where I was. Then it all came rushing back: the diner, the chase, the mansion, the prison. A knock sounded, and Maria entered with a tray. "Good morning. Mr. Caruso thought you might like breakfast in bed for today." "What time is it?" "Nearly noon. He asked that you join him for lunch when you're ready. There's a closet through that door. He's had it stocked for you." The closet was a room unto itself, lined with clothes in my size, shoes in my width, accessories I'd never owned. Everything perfectly chosen, perfectly arranged, perfectly suffocating. I chose the simplest outfit I could find, jeans and a sweater, and made my way downstairs, following the sound of voices to a dining room that could have seated 20, but currently held only Dante, reading a newspaper with a coffee cup at his elbow. He looked up when I entered, and his face transformed. The cold, dangerous man from last night softened into something that reminded me painfully of the boy he'd been. "You slept well?" "Like a prisoner." The words came out sharper than intended, but I didn't take them back. He set down the paper, unfazed. "Sit, eat, then I have something to show you." The food was incredible. Fresh fruit, pastries that melted on the tongue, eggs cooked perfectly. I ate because I was hungry, not because I'd forgiven anything. "What do you want to show me?" I asked finally, setting down my fork. He stood, holding out his hand. "Come with me." Against my better judgment, I took it. His fingers laced through mine, warm and sure, and he led me through the house to a wing I hadn't seen. He opened a door, and I stepped into a room that made my breath catch. It was an art studio. North-facing windows flooded it with perfect light. Easels stood ready, canvases stacked against walls, paints and brushes organized with care, and on the walls, dozens of paintings. My face, from every angle, every mood, spanning years. "I never stopped painting you," he said quietly. "Even when I couldn't find you, you were all I could see." I turned to him, tears streaming down my face, and saw my own reflection in his eyes. "Wanted, cherished, trapped. What do you want from me?" I whispered. He stepped closer, his forehead resting against mine. "Everything. Nothing. Just stay. Let me keep you safe. Let me—" A man in a suit breathing hard. The door burst open. "Sir, we have a problem. It's about the Rossini girl. She's here." Dante's entire body went rigid. "What?" "She's demanding to see you. Says she has information about last night. About who was watching." His hand tightened on mine almost painfully. When he looked at me, there was something new in his eyes. Something like fear. "Emma, I need you to go back to your room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but Maria." "Who is the Rossini girl? What's—" "Please." He kissed my forehead, quick and desperate. "Trust me. Just this once. Trust me." And then he was gone, leaving me in a room full of paintings of my face, wondering what new danger had just walked through his door. I didn't go back to my room. Instead, I found myself drawn down the hallway in the direction Dante had gone, my feet moving silently over plush carpet. I told myself I needed to understand what was happening, that I had a right to know what danger I'd been pulled into. But truthfully, something darker drove me. Jealousy, maybe. Or the need to know who this Rossini girl was, and why the mention of her name had put fear in Dante's eyes. The voices led me to a grand sitting room. I pressed myself against the wall just outside, hidden behind a marble column, and listened. "Can't just show up here unannounced, Isabella." Dante's voice was tight, controlled anger barely leashed. I go where I please. The woman's voice was cultured, sharp as cut glass, especially when it concerns my family's interests. Or have you forgotten our arrangement? There is no arrangement. Your father and I have business dealings, that's all. A laugh, brittle and cold. Business dealings. Is that what we're calling it? Because I seem to remember a very different conversation 6 months ago. Something about alliances. About joining our families properly. My stomach dropped. 6 months ago. The same time Dante had found me. That was your father's suggestion, not mine. I made my position clear. Your position. Her voice dripped contempt. And what position is that, Dante? Because from where I'm standing, you've been stringing us along while you play house with some waitress you dragged in from God knows where. The urge to burst into the room, to defend myself, was almost overwhelming. But something kept me frozen, listening. Watch your tongue, Isabella. Dante's voice had gone deadly quiet. Emma is none of your concern. Emma. She drew out my name like it was something distasteful. The girl from the paintings, your little obsession. I should have known when you kept refusing me that there was someone else. I just didn't realize she was so common. This conversation is over. Leave. Now. I'll leave when I'm ready. But first, you should know. My father is aware of your little reunion, and he's not pleased. The Rossini family doesn't take kindly to being dismissed, especially not for some nobody from your past. Your father knows better than to threaten me. Does he? Because I seem to recall that shipment last month, the one that went missing. Or the warehouse fire in the dock district. Accidents happen, Dante, especially to people who forget their place in the order of things. Silence. Then Dante's voice, each word carefully measured. If your father has concerns about our business relationship, he can speak to me directly. Not send his daughter to make veiled threats in my home. This isn't a threat. It's a warning. You're playing a dangerous game, bringing that girl here. There are people who won't understand, who will see it as weakness. Then they can come say so to my face. Some already have. That car last night, the one following you from the diner, that wasn't random, Dante. That was a message. There are questions being asked about where your loyalties lie, about whether you're still fit to lead. My blood ran cold. The car, the blown tire. This woman was saying it hadn't been an accident. Get out, Isabella, and tell your father that if he wants war, he can have it, but he won't like how it ends. You would start a war over her? Over some girl you haven't seen in 15 years? Isabella's laugh was incredulous. She must be something special. I can't wait to meet her properly. You won't. You're not welcome here. And if you come near Emma, if you so much as look at her, you'll what? Kill me? Start a blood feud with the Rossinis? Over a waitress? Another pause. You've gone soft, Dante. Love has made you weak. And in our world, weakness is fatal. Footsteps. I turned to flee, but it wasn't fast enough. Isabella emerged, and we came face to face. She was beautiful in the way expensive things are beautiful. Polished, perfect, cold. Dark hair swept into an elegant chignon, designer clothes that hung perfectly on her slender frame, diamonds at her throat and wrists that caught the light. Her eyes, when they met mine, were calculating and cruel. Well, the waitress herself. She looked me up and down, taking in my borrowed clothes, my unmade face, everything that marked me as an outsider here. I can see the appeal, I suppose, if one likes the whole damsel in distress aesthetic. Isabella. Dante appeared behind her, his face thunderous. I said, leave. I'm going. She smiled at me, all teeth. Enjoy your time here, Emma. I'm sure it will be educational. Then, to Dante, my father will be in touch. She swept past me in a cloud of perfume that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. The front door opened and closed, and then she was gone. Dante's hand gripped my arm, not gently. I told you to go to your room. I don't take orders from you. When it's for your safety, you do. He pulled me into the sitting room, closing the door behind us. Do you have any idea what you just walked into? What she could do with the information that you were eavesdropping? What I walked into? Dante, what the hell is going on? Who is she? What arrangement? What does she mean about your loyalties? He ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of agitation I'd seen from him. It's complicated, then uncomplicated. If I'm stuck here, if I'm in danger because of you, I deserve to know why. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he moved to the window, looking out over the grounds with his back to me. My father ran the Caruso family business. When I was 17, when I knew you, I thought I could escape it. I thought I could be normal, be an artist, be anything else. His shoulders tensed. I was wrong. They pulled me back, made me understand that blood has obligations, debts that must be paid. What kind of business? He turned to face me, and there was something bleak in his eyes. The kind you don't ask about if you want to sleep at night. The Mafia. I said it flatly. You're in the Mafia. I lead it. There's a difference. He moved closer. When my father died 5 years ago, I took over. The Caruso family controls the Eastern Territories. Shipping, imports, certain establishments. The Rossinis control the West. We've had an uneasy peace for years, maintained through mutual benefit and occasional marriages. And Isabella wants to marry you. Her father wants it. An alliance through marriage, tying our families together, creating a united front against the other families moving into our territories. His jaw clenched. I've been refusing for 6 months. Since I found you. 6 months. Always. It came back to 6 months. So you're choosing me over a Mafia alliance? Over peace? I laughed, but it came out broken. Do you know how insane that sounds? I don't care. He was in front of me now, hands framing my face. I don't care what it costs, Emma. I lost you once because of this life, because they dragged me away from everything I loved. I won't lose you again. Not for peace, not for power, not for anything. People are going to die. The words fell between us like stones. That's what she was saying, wasn't it? That your refusal will start a war, possibly. And you're okay with that? His thumbs stroked my cheekbones, tender despite the hardness in his voice. I've made peace with a lot of things I'm not okay with. This won't be the first war I've fought, but it will be the first one that actually matters. I pulled away from him, needing distance, needing air. This is insane. All of this. You can't just... Dante, you have to let me go. Before this gets worse. Before more people get hurt. No. People could die. People die every day. His voice was flat, emotionless. The world is cruel and violent and unfair, Emma. I didn't make it that way. I just learned how to survive in it, how to take what I want and keep it safe. I'm not a thing to be kept. No, you're everything. He closed the distance between us again, relentless. You're the only clean thing I've touched in 15 years. The only memory that doesn't taste like blood, and I will burn the world down before I let anyone take you from me. The intensity of it was overwhelming. I wanted to argue, to fight, to maintain my independence, but looking into his eyes, I saw the truth. He meant every word. And the terrifying part was that some broken, lonely piece of me responded to it, craved the certainty of being wanted that badly. What do you expect from me? I whispered. What am I supposed to do here? Be safe, be comfortable, be mine. His forehead touched mine. Let me take care of you the way I should have 15 years ago. And if I can't? If I need more than just being kept like some pet? Something flickered in his expression. Then tell me what you need. I'll give it to you. I need freedom. Within reason. I need purpose. Then find one. The studio is yours. Paint, create, do whatever makes you happy. Just do it here, where I can protect you. I need to not feel like a prisoner. He stepped back, and for the first time, I saw uncertainty in his face. I don't know how to give you that. Not when the alternative is you leaving, you being vulnerable, you being... He stopped, swallowed hard. I can't lose you again, Emma. Ask me for anything else, but not that. A knock at the door interrupted us. One of his men entered, the same one who'd brought news of Isabella. Sir, phone call, it's urgent, about the situation downtown. Dante's face hardened back into that mask of control. I'll take it in my office. To me, "We'll continue this conversation later. Please just stay inside. Don't go out onto the grounds. Am I under house arrest now? You're under protection. There's a difference." He left, and I was alone in that massive room, surrounded by luxury that felt like a gilded cage. I walked to the window, looking out at the manicured grounds, the high walls, the guards patrolling with weapons barely concealed. A prison, no matter how beautiful. But as I stood there, I couldn't help thinking about what Isabella had said, about weakness, about the danger of loving someone in a world built on power and violence. And I couldn't help wondering if Dante was right, if maybe the world outside these walls was more dangerous than the one within them. Maria found me an hour later, still standing at the window. "Come, dear, let me show you the rest of the house. It's easy to feel trapped if you only see the walls." I followed her through corridors and rooms, each more opulent than the last. A library with first editions behind glass. A music room with a grand piano that gleamed like black water. A conservatory filled with orchids and the sound of a fountain. And finally, the art studio Dante had shown me earlier. "He painted while he looked for you," Maria said softly, gesturing to the canvases. "Every night, sometimes until dawn, I'd find him here, covered in paint, staring at your face like he could will you into existence." I moved closer to the paintings. They were good. No, they were exceptional. Each one captured something different. Me laughing, me serious, me sad. Versions of me I'd never seen in a mirror, beautiful and worthy and seen. "How long have you worked for him?" I asked. 20 years, since he was a boy." She smiled. "I watched him try to run from this life. Watched it pull him back. Watched it hollow him out until there was nothing left but duty and violence." She touched one of the paintings gently. "Until he found you again. The change in him these last 6 months, it's like seeing someone come back to life, even if it starts a war, especially then." Maria's eyes met mine. "Power without purpose is just destruction, Emma. You give him purpose. Maybe that's worth fighting for." I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I found myself picking up a brush, feeling the weight of it in my hand. I hadn't painted since high school, since those art classes where Dante and I had sat side by side, our hands stained with the same colors. The canvas was blank, waiting, and for the first time since arriving, I felt something other than fear or anger. I felt possibility. I painted until the light faded, until my shoulders ached and my hands cramped. I painted the view from my old apartment window, the broken neon sign across the street, the fire escape where I'd sit on summer nights, the small patch of sky visible between buildings. I painted the life I'd left behind, trying to understand how I felt about losing it. When Dante found me, hours later, I was staring at the finished canvas with tears on my cheeks. "It's beautiful," he said softly from the doorway. "It's gone." I didn't turn to look at him. Everything I built, everything I had, it's all gone now. "No." He moved behind me, his hands settling on my shoulders. "It's transformed. You're not losing anything, Emma. You're gaining everything you were denied. What if I don't want what you're offering? What if I just want my simple, small life back?" His hands tightened. "Then you're lying to yourself. I saw where you lived, how you survived." "That wasn't living, Bella. That was dying slowly, one shift at a time." I turned in his arms, angry tears still falling. At least it was mine. At least I had choices, even if they were all bad ones. I gestured at the studio, the mansion beyond. "This is just a prettier prison, then make it yours." His voice was fierce, desperate. "Change it, demand what you need. I told you, I'll give you anything. Just don't ask me to let you go." "Why?" I demanded. "Why me? After 15 years, why am I worth all this?" He cupped my face in hands that were stained with my paint, his thumbs brushing away tears. "Because when I was 17, you were the first person who looked at me and saw someone worth saving. Because you smiled at me like I mattered when the rest of the world saw only my father's son. Because loving you was the last time I felt human." His voice cracked on the last word. And I saw it then. The loneliness that matched my own, the desperate need to matter to someone, to be chosen. "I'm not the girl you remember," I whispered. "I'm not the boy you knew. He smiled, sad and knowing. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we can figure out who we are now. Together. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his face went hard. What? Isabella's father just called a meeting. All the families. Tomorrow night. His eyes met mine. It's about us, about you. What does that mean? It means war is coming, Emma, and you're the reason why. The next day passed in a strange limbo. Dante was gone before I woke, leaving only a note on the pillow beside me. Stay inside. Trust me. As if trust was something I could simply summon on command, as if the last 48 hours hadn't turned my entire world upside down. I spent the morning in the studio, trying to lose myself in paint and canvas, but my hands shook too badly to create anything coherent. Every sound made me jump. Footsteps in the hallway, car engines in the distance, the wind against the windows. Maria brought me meals I couldn't eat, her worried glances saying more than her careful words. By afternoon, I couldn't stand it anymore. I found myself wandering the mansion like a ghost, opening doors to rooms I hadn't seen before. A gym with equipment that looked military grade, an office with monitors showing security feeds from every angle of the property, a wine cellar that descended into darkness, bottles worth more than my yearly salary gathering dust in climate-controlled silence. And then I found the locked door. It was in a hallway I hadn't explored before, unmarked and ordinary except for the heavy deadbolt and keypad beside the handle. I shouldn't have cared. Shouldn't have been curious. But something about it called to me, the one secret in a house full of them. I was still standing there, staring at it, when I heard voices approaching, male voices, speaking in rapid Italian. I pressed myself into an alcove just as two of Dante's men appeared, one of them punching a code into the keypad. The door opened, revealing stairs leading down. They descended, and I caught a glimpse of what lay below, filing cabinets, boxes, the edge of what looked like a map on a wall. Then the door closed, and I was alone again, with my racing heart. A record room, or an arsenal, or God knew what else men like Dante kept locked away in the dark. You shouldn't be here. I spun around to find Marco, Dante's head of security, watching me with unreadable eyes. He was older than the others, with gray at his temples and scars that told stories I didn't want to know. I was just exploring. He nodded, not unkindly. Mr. Caruso said you would. He knows you're not the type to sit still and be decorative. Then why lock me in here? He's not locking you in. He's locking the world out. Marco gestured for me to follow him. Come, I'll show you something. He led me to a different wing, to a room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds. From here, I could see the full scope of the property, the walls, the guards, the security measures that turned this beautiful estate into a fortress. See that? He pointed to a section of wall where men were installing what looked like additional cameras. That's new, as of this morning, and there, another point. Infrared sensors, motion detectors. We're doubling the guard rotation, vetting every delivery person, every visitor. All because Mr. Caruso knows that by choosing you, he's made you a target. My mouth went dry. A target for what? For anyone who wants to hurt him. And make no mistake, Miss Emma, there are many who would. Marco's face was grave. The Rossinis aren't the only family unhappy with his choices. There are rivals who see this as an opportunity. Weakness they can exploit. I'm not worth all this. That's not for you to decide. He turned to face me fully. I've worked for the Caruso family for 30 years. I watched Dante's father build this empire on blood and ruthlessness. I watched Dante try to escape it and fail. And in all that time, I've never seen him care about anything the way he cares about you. He doesn't even know me. He knows the idea of you, the memory of being someone better than what this life made him. Sometimes that's enough. Marco's expression softened slightly. You think you're trapped here, but the truth is, he's the one in a cage, and you're the only key he's ever found. Before I could respond, another guard appeared in the doorway. Marco, sir. Mr. Caruso is on his way back. He wants Miss Emma in the main sitting room. The knot in my stomach tightened. The meeting. It's over? Not yet. He's preparing for tonight. Marco nodded to me. Come. He'll want to see you. I found Dante in the sitting room, surrounded by papers and phones and men in dark suits who stopped talking the moment I entered. He looked up, and something in his face eased when he saw me. "Leave us," he said to the others. They filed out without question, closing the door behind them. We were alone. "How bad is it?" I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. "Bad." He loosened his tie, the first sign of stress I'd seen. "Giovanni Rossini is demanding answers. He wants to know why I've been refusing Isabella, why I've jeopardized our alliance. And he's not the only one asking questions." "Then tell them the truth. Tell them I mean nothing to you, that I'm just... Don't." The word cracked like a whip. "Don't ask me to deny you. I won't do it. Even if it prevents a war, especially then." He moved closer, and I saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of decisions I couldn't begin to understand. "Emma, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Tonight's meeting will determine what happens next. Whether there's peace or violence. Whether you're safe or..." He stopped, jaw clenching. "I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If anything happens to me, if things go wrong, Marco will get you out. He has instructions, money, new documents. You'll be safe. Dante, promise me." His hands gripped my shoulders. "Promise me you'll run if I tell you to." You can't ask me to just..." "I'm not asking." His forehead pressed against mine, his breath warm on my lips. "I'm begging. If I know you'll be safe, I can do what needs to be done tonight. But if I'm worried about you, if I'm distracted, then you'll get yourself killed." The words tasted like ash. "That's what you're saying, isn't it? That tonight could go wrong, that you might not come back. It's a possibility I have to prepare for." Something broke open in my chest. "You're really willing to die for this? For me?" "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to keep you." His thumb brushed my cheek, catching a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. "I've lived 15 years without you, Emma. I've built an empire, commanded respect, taken what I wanted from this world, but none of it meant anything. None of it filled the hole you left. That's not fair. You can't put that on me." "I know." He pulled back slightly, his eyes searching mine. "I know it's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, but it's the truth." I was shaking, I realized. From fear or anger or the overwhelming weight of being responsible for his life, I couldn't tell. "What do you want from me, Dante? Right now, in this moment, what do you want?" "I want you to kiss me." The words were raw, vulnerable. "I want to remember what it felt like to be 17 and stupid and in love, before everything got complicated. Before I became this." He gestured at himself, at the expensive clothes and heavy watches and all the trappings of power. "We're not those people anymore, no. But maybe we can be something better." His hand cupped my face, and I felt the calluses on his palm. Roughness that matched my own, earned through different struggles but equally real. "One kiss, Emma. Give me that much before I walk into a room full of people who want me dead." I should have said no, should have maintained boundaries, kept my distance, protected what was left of my independence. But looking at him, really looking at him, I saw the boy I'd loved beneath the monster he'd become, and I saw something else too, the same desperate loneliness that had defined my own life for so long. So I kissed him. It started gentle, tentative. A brush of lips that tasted like memory and regret, but then his hand tangled in my hair, and I gripped his shirt. And suddenly we were 17 again, stealing kisses in the art room after school, paint-stained and breathless and alive. Except we weren't 17, and this kiss carried the weight of 15 years, of all the things we'd lost and found and broken between us. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together in the silence. "Come back," I whispered. "Whatever happens tonight, you come back to me." "I will." His lips brushed my temple. "I promise." A knock at the door shattered the moment. Marco's voice. "Sir, the car is ready." Dante straightened, and I watched the transformation happen. The vulnerable man replaced by the cold, calculating leader. He adjusted his tie, checked his watch, became someone I didn't quite recognize. "Stay with Maria," he said. "Don't open the door for anyone else, and Emma..." He turned back at the threshold. "Thank you. For the kiss. For believing I might be worth coming back to." Then he was gone, and I was alone with the taste of him on my lips and terror in my heart. The hours that followed were torture. Maria tried to distract me with dinner, with television, with anything that might keep my mind from spiraling. But all I could think about was Dante in a room full of dangerous men, defending his choice to keep me, potentially dying for it. Around 11, I couldn't stand it anymore. I found myself back in that hallway, staring at the locked door, the record room, the secrets. This time, I tried the code I'd seen the guard enter. My hands shook as I punched in the numbers, certain it wouldn't work, that I'd trigger some alarm. The lock clicked open. I descended the stairs into darkness, feeling along the wall until I found a light switch. Fluorescent bulbs flickered to life, revealing exactly what I'd suspected. A room full of files, maps, photographs, the hidden architecture of Dante's empire. I shouldn't have looked. Shouldn't have opened the filing cabinets. Shouldn't have pulled out folders marked with names and dates and amounts that made my head spin. But I did, and that's when I found it. A folder with my name on it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Me walking to work, me at the grocery store, me sitting on my fire escape, reading. 6 months' worth of surveillance, maybe more. Notes in Dante's handwriting. She still takes her coffee black. She still reads romance novels. She still has that smile. But there were other documents too, background checks, financial records, and one that made my blood run cold. A report on my building's landlord, dated 2 months ago, detailing his connections to the Rossini family. My apartment building, the place I'd felt safe for 3 years, had been owned by Dante's enemies. I was still standing there, folder and shaking hands, when I heard the explosion. It was distant, but unmistakable. A boom that rattled the windows and sent birds scattering from the trees. I dropped the folder and ran upstairs, emerging into chaos. Guards were shouting, running for the exits. Maria grabbed my arm, her face pale. "Get to the safe room. Now." "What's happening? Is it Dante? Is he?" "I don't know, but we have protocol. Come with me." She pulled me down another hallway, through a door that opened into a reinforced room with monitors and supplies. 2 other guards were already there, weapons drawn, watching multiple screens. On one of them, I could see fire. Smoke. The meeting location, I realized. The restaurant where Dante had gone. "We need to get him," I said, my voice not my own. "We need to. Our orders are to protect you." Marco's voice came through a radio. "Miss Emma stays secure until we know the situation." "The situation is that he could be dead." I was screaming now, hysteria clawing up my throat. "Let me out. Let me—" The door opened, and Dante stumbled through. He was alive, covered in dust and blood, suit torn, but alive. I ran to him without thinking, and he caught me, his arms coming around me with desperate strength. "I'm okay," he said against my hair. "I'm okay. It's over." "What happened?" "The explosion. The Rossinis made their choice." His voice was flat, emotionless in that way that meant he was holding something terrible inside. "They tried to kill me. All of us. The entire council. Everyone who supports me. Did they? Are the others? Some are dead. Some survived." He pulled back to look at me, and I saw something new in his eyes. Something final. "But Giovanni Rossini won't be making any more demands. Neither will Isabella." The implication hit me like a sledgehammer. "You killed them." I protected what's mine. No apology, no regret. Just cold, hard fact. I should have been horrified. Should have pulled away from him, from the blood on his hands, literal and metaphorical. But all I felt was relief that he was alive, that he'd come back like he promised. "What happens now?" I whispered. "Now?" He touched my face with blood-stained fingers, tender despite everything. "Now we finish this. No more half measures. No more pretending you're just a guest here." His eyes burned into mine. "You're mine, Emma. Completely. And anyone who tries to take you from me will learn what happens when you touch what belongs to Dante Caruso." It should have sounded like a threat, like possession, like everything I'd been fighting against. Instead, it sounded like a promise, like safety. Like the end of running and hiding and being invisible. "Okay, I heard myself say. Okay. His kiss tasted like smoke and blood and victory, and I kissed him back, choosing this, choosing him, choosing to stop fighting the only person who'd ever fought for me. The aftermath of the explosion changed everything. In the days that followed, I watched Dante transform the mansion into something between a fortress and a throne room. Men came and went at all hours. Soldiers, I learned to call them, though they wore suits instead of uniforms. They brought news of territories claimed, rivals eliminated, alliances forged in blood and fear. The Rossini family had fractured after Giovanni's death, their empire crumbling as Dante's forces moved in to fill the vacuum. I should have been horrified by the efficiency of it all, the clinical way he dismantled his enemies' lives. But I'd seen the bomb site on the news, the restaurant reduced to rubble, innocent people caught in the crossfire of someone else's war. The Rossinis had been willing to kill dozens to eliminate Dante. He'd simply been willing to kill more to survive. A week after the explosion, I woke to find him sitting on the edge of the bed, watching me sleep. Dawn light filtered through the curtains, painting him in shades of gold and shadow. "How long have you been there?" I asked, my voice rough with sleep. "An hour. Maybe more." His hand reached out, fingers tracing the line of my jaw. "I keep thinking you'll disappear, that I'll wake up and find this was all a dream." I caught his hand, pressing it against my cheek. "I'm real. I'm here." "Are you?" His eyes searched mine. "Or are you just surviving until you can escape?" The question hung between us, honest and raw. I could have lied, could have told him what he wanted to hear, but something in his expression demanded truth. "I don't know," I admitted. "Some days I wake up angry that you took my choices away, that you decided my life for me without asking. And other days I remember what my life was before, the exhaustion, the loneliness, the feeling of being invisible." I sat up, the silk sheets pooling around my waist. "You see me, Dante. Maybe too clearly, maybe in ways that terrify me, but you see me." His thumb brushed my lower lip. "I've never stopped seeing you. Even when you were gone, you were all I could see. That's not healthy. I know." A ghost of a smile. "Nothing about this is healthy, but it's real. And after 15 years of living in a world built on lies and violence and performance, real is all I want." I leaned into his touch, letting myself feel it. The warmth of his skin, the calluses on his palm, the steady beat of his pulse beneath my fingertips where I'd pressed my hand to his wrist. "What do we do now? The war is over. You won. So what happens to me? What do you want to happen?" It was the first time he'd asked, the first time he'd given me agency in my own fate. I thought about it carefully, sorting through the tangle of emotions that had defined the past 2 weeks. "I want to paint," I said finally. "I want to use the studio to create something that matters, not just for myself, but for others." "Done. I'll have Maria reach out to galleries, art dealers." "No," I stopped him. "I want to teach. Kids from neighborhoods like the one I grew up in. The ones who think art is something only rich people get to care about." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or respect. "You want to bring them here? I want you to fund a program at community centers, at schools. Supplies, instruction, scholarships for the talented ones." I met his eyes. "You've built an empire on taking from people. Let me help you give something back." For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then he laughed. A real laugh. The first I'd heard from him since we'd reunited. "You're going to spend my money on art programs for children. Blood money might as well do some good. It's not all—" He stopped, shook his head. "Yes. Okay. Whatever you want. I'll have my accountant set up a foundation, put you in charge of it. I want autonomy, real autonomy, to make decisions without your approval. Within reason. No. Complete autonomy. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right." I gripped his hand. "You said you'd give me anything. This is what I want. Purpose, agency, the ability to make something good out of all this darkness." His jaw clenched, and I could see the war happening behind his eyes, the need to control everything warring with his need to give me what I asked for. Finally, he nodded. "Okay. Complete autonomy. But," he raised a finger, You take security with you, everywhere. The world knows about you now, Emma, about what you mean to me. That makes you a target. I can live with that. And you live here. With me. No separate apartments. No maintaining your independence by keeping one foot out the door. My heart hammered. You want me to actually move in. Officially. I want you to stay. Forever. His hands cupped my face. I want to wake up to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to watch you paint and argue with you about art and listen to you talk about your students. I want... His voice cracked slightly. I want to build a life with you, a real one. Not just this holding pattern where you're my captive and I'm your captor. What if I can't love you back? The words came out whisper soft. What if too much has happened, too much darkness, and I can't? Then I'll love you anyway. Simple. Certain. Absolute. I'll love you enough for both of us until maybe, someday, you can love me too. Or not. Either way, you're mine. And I'm yours. And that's enough. Tears burned my eyes. You're insane. Probably. He kissed me, soft and sweet and devastating, but I'm your kind of insane. Say yes, Emma? Not because you're trapped, but because you're choosing this. Choosing me. I thought about the diner, about my tiny apartment with its broken locks and mold. I thought about being invisible, being nobody, serving coffee to people who never learned my name. And I thought about the studio full of paints, about the foundation I could build, about waking up next to someone who saw me as worth fighting wars for. It wasn't a fairy tale. It would never be normal. But maybe normal was overrated. Yes, I whispered against his lips. I'll stay. I choose this. I choose you. His arms came around me, crushing me against his chest, and I felt the shudder that ran through him. Relief and joy, and something that felt almost like tears. Thank you, he breathed into my hair. Thank you. We stayed like that until the sun was fully up, until Maria knocked gently to announce breakfast, until the world demanded our attention. But something had shifted. Something fundamental. I was no longer a prisoner. I was a partner. And that made all the difference. 3 months later, I stood in the community center in my old neighborhood, watching 20 kids experiment with watercolors for the first time. Their hands were already stained with paint, their faces lit with the kind of wonder I remembered from being their age. Miss Emma, look, a little girl, Sophia, 7 years old, gap-toothed and brilliant, held up her painting. It was abstract, wild with color, utterly fearless. It's beautiful, I said honestly. Tell me about it. As she launched into an explanation involving dragons and rainbows in her grandmother's garden, I felt arms wrap around me from behind. Dante's chin rested on my shoulder, his body warm against my back. You're good at this, he murmured. You're supposed to be at a meeting. It ended early. I wanted to see you. His lips brushed my temple. Besides, Marco was getting nervous about you being here without me. I glanced over to where Marco stood by the door, trying to look inconspicuous in his expensive suit among the paint-splattered chaos. The kids had already nicknamed him Mr. Serious. They're children, Dante, not assassins. I'm aware. Doesn't mean I don't worry. His arms tightened slightly. This place, your old neighborhood, there are still people here who work for families that aren't friendly to us. Then they'll see me doing something good, building something positive. I turned in his arms. Unless you want me to stop? Never. His hand cupped my face. I'm proud of you. Of this. You're changing lives, Emma. These kids, they'll remember this. Remember that someone cared enough to give them beauty. We're giving them beauty. This is your money, your resources, your vision, your heart. He kissed me softly, unmindful of the giggles from the children around us. I'm just the bank. You're more than that. I rested my forehead against his. You're the reason I can do this, the reason I'm not too exhausted or too broke or too invisible to matter. You always mattered, but now I know it. We stayed there for another hour, Dante surprisingly patient as kids showed him their artwork and asked him questions about his fancy watch and why he wore a suit when it wasn't Sunday. I watched him crouch down to their level, saw the careful way he handled their paintings, and caught glimpses of the boy he'd been, the one who'd loved art before the world had turned him into something harder. That night, back at the mansion, I found him in the studio. He stood before an easel I'd never seen him use, a brush in his hand, staring at a blank canvas. "I didn't know you still painted," I said from the doorway. "I don't. Haven't in years." He set down the brush. "But watching you today, with those kids, I remembered what it felt like to create something instead of destroy it." I moved to stand beside him. "So create. I'll even share my studio. It's your studio." "No, it's our studio." I picked up the brush he'd abandoned, pressing it back into his hand. "Paint with me. Show me who you were before everything else." For a moment, I thought he'd refuse. Then he dipped the brush in paint, cobalt blue, the color of night sky, and made the first stroke across the canvas. We painted together as the moon rose, our hands finding the same rhythms we'd had at 17. And when the painting emerged, abstract and emotional and raw, I saw both of us in it, the darkness and the light, the violence and the beauty, the brokenness and the hope of being whole. "I love you," he said suddenly, his eyes on the canvas rather than me. "I know I've said it before, but I need you to know. I love you. Not the memory, not the idea. You. This version of you, the one who challenges me and fights me and refuses to let me turn her into something she's not." My throat tightened. I'd been waiting for those words to feel real, to land without the weight of obligation. And finally, standing in our studio, paint on our hands and our creation between us, they did. "I love you too," I said, and watched his head snap toward me, eyes wide with shock. I don't know when it happened. Maybe it never stopped. Maybe it's new. But it's real, Dante, and it's mine to give, not something you took or demanded. Mine. He crossed to me in 2 strides, hands framing my face, searching my eyes for the truth. Whatever he saw there made him smile. A real smile, open and young and devastatingly beautiful. "Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you, Dante Caruso, even though you're possessive and controlling, and you kidnapped me from a diner." I was laughing now, crying a little too. "I love you even though you're dangerous and dark, and you've probably killed people I don't want to know about. Definitely have. I love you anyway, because you see me, because you fought for me, because you gave me a purpose when I thought I'd never matter." I kissed him, tasting salt from my own tears. "Because you let me choose you instead of just taking me." His kiss was different this time, not desperate or claiming or afraid. It was grateful, joyful, free. "Marry me," he said against my lips. I pulled back. "What?" "Marry me. Not for alliances or appearances or because it's expected. Marry me because you love me, and I love you. And I want the world to know you chose this. Chose us." "That's insane. We've only been together 3 months. We've been together 15 years. We just had a long break in the middle." His smile was crooked, hopeful. "Say yes, Emma. Make me the luckiest man alive." I should have said it was too soon, should have been practical, careful, smart, but I'd spent my whole life being careful. And where had it gotten me? Exhausted and invisible and alone. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I'll marry you." His kiss lifted me off my feet, spinning me in a circle as laughter spilled from both of us. When he finally set me down, we were both dizzy, both grinning like fools. "I'm going to spoil you," he promised. "The wedding, the honeymoon, everything." "Small wedding," I interrupted. "Just people who matter. I don't need a spectacle." "Okay, small wedding. But the ring I'm not compromising on. I don't need—" He pulled a box from his pocket. He'd been carrying it, I realized, waiting for the right moment. Inside was a ring that took my breath away. A sapphire the color of midnight, surrounded by diamonds that caught the light like stars. "It was my grandmother's," he said softly. "The only woman my grandfather ever loved. He gave it to her when they had nothing, promising someday he'd give her everything. She wore it until the day she died." He took my hand. "I want you to have it, to know that you're not just my choice. You're my legacy, my everything." The ring slid onto my finger perfectly, as if it had been waiting for me all along. 6 months later, we were married in the garden of the mansion, surrounded by flowers and friends and the children from my art program who threw petals and giggled through the ceremony. Maria cried. Marco smiled, and Dante looked at me like I was every prayer he'd ever whispered in the dark finally answered. Our life wasn't normal. It would never be normal. There were still guards, still danger, still the weight of the empire he'd built on violence and power, but there was also laughter, art, purpose. Love that had survived 15 years of separation and found its way back home. On our wedding night, as we lay tangled together in silk sheets, Dante traced the line of my spine with gentle fingers. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "Any of it?" I thought about the diner, the explosion, the fear and anger and resistance. I thought about everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. "No," I said honestly. "I regret that it took so long, that we lost 15 years. But us, I don't regret this. Even though I kidnapped you, you rescued me. There's a difference." He laughed against my shoulder. "Is that what we're calling it?" "That's what I'm calling it." I turned to face him, my hand over his heart. "You gave me back my life, Dante. A better one than I ever could have built alone. You gave me purpose and safety and love. So yes, you kidnapped me. But you also set me free." His eyes shone in the moonlight streaming through the windows. "I love you, Mrs. Caruso. I love you too." I kissed him softly. Forever. And in that moment, in that room, in that life we'd built from ashes and obsession and second chances, forever felt possible. We'd both been lost, him to violence, me to invisibility, but we'd found each other again, and this time, we weren't letting go. The waitress who'd stopped to fix a Mafia boss's car had discovered she was his first love. But more importantly, she'd discovered she was her own person, capable of love and strength and choosing her own destiny, even when that destiny wore an expensive suit and commanded an empire. Our story didn't have a fairy tale ending. It had something better, a real one. Messy and complicated and stained with paint and blood and absolutely perfectly ours. And that was enough.